Hello and welcome back to the Double M Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host Ryan, and I'm joined by my lovely cohort of co-hosts, Alex,
Blessings from the algorithm, fellow talkies.
Wyatt,
Hi.
and Brett.
Yes.
Alright, we're all here. It's episode number 95. We have some big news this week, as well as Wyatt losing his lungs.
I am. I got the big one this time. I got good old Rona, and it's great. And I
At
love
least
it,
he's
and
good enough to be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alright, so I think the giant hammer in the air right now is good old Activision-Blizzard has been acquired by Microsoft. We're going to be talking about this for most of the podcast because there's a lot to talk about, or things tangentially related to it, not necessarily the acquisition itself, but a lot
to think about.
There's a lot to think about here about the industry going forward.
It's the new 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, but
yes,
for games.
Absolutely. First, we got some other minor things to get out of the way, and some exciting things going forward. So, I got a nice little bit of news for all of us.
Ooh.
Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, is launching on the 5th of April, 2022. I think all of us are, at least most of us, are more excited for this game than we probably should be.
Yeah.
Given the fact that we're all grown adults.
It has everything.
It's got the it factor of Lego games.
It does, and it's like so much childhood nostalgia that if this is like any good, it's just gonna so many feelings will be relived.
Yeah, because I have a feeling all of us grew up in the era of Star Wars, Lego Star Wars originally releasing, so this is a big old nostalgia hit.
You can have space dogfights and then board a larger ship and take it over from the inside. It's the perfect game.
I do want to say, so that is something they talked about a while back. Hasn't been confirmed in trailers yet. So I don't want to promise that it's there, but there have been interviews where they talked about it. So that are like recorded. So I think that is a thing that exists, but if it doesn't exist, that is certainly something I could see being cut content because that is a pretty ambitious goal. Yeah, but either way, there are open world space dogfights, and I'm pretty down for that.
Now, what's the company making it again? Is it what's
Traveler's
the initials
Tales.
that are Traveler's Tales? Okay.
Yeah, they do.
I thought it was Tiny Tales. It's Traveler's Tales.
Now I know all of you.
Time to apply to them.
Play every Lego game, obviously, that has ever released.
Right.
So,
of course,
we have a little game today.
Oh boy. Is it
it's about game? It is a Lego game. It's about Lego.
The Lego game.
Lego game. So I'm going to ask you, of the mainline Lego games, so the mainline like licensed Lego games, this is excluding things that are Lego only property, so no Lego Movie and no like Ninjago stuff that we don't talk about normally because we don't know what it is. But of the like Batman Lego games, of the Harry Potter Lego games, of the Lord of the Rings game, the Star Wars ones, the Pirates of the Caribbean one, the Marvel ones, which one do you think takes the longest to beat?
Oh,
Lord of the Rings. Or The Hobbit. If they are separate, Lord of the Rings.
They are separate, yeah.
Lord of the Rings over The Hobbit, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that. That would make sense.
Yeah, I don't want to be the.
And this is not the completionist time. This is just the main story.
I'm still going with the Lord of the Rings.
All right.
Yeah.
Good to know. So, it is the front runner, from what I can tell right now, is Lego City Undercover. Has the longest Lego story. Anyone want to take a guess at how long that is? And then I'll go to the next longest for the actual winner.
I mean, that game is like actually just like Lego GTA, like no exaggeration.
But just the main story, not side content, just main story. What do you think the longest main story in a Lego game is?
Oh God, 36 hours?
I was gonna say 30, you bastard.
That's strangely specific.
All right, Brett's got 30.
I think that thing's in base 12.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 20 to 30.
You guys are shooting high.
But I'm gonna go I'm gonna go with a nice, even 35.
Wow, you all
You.
vastly overestimate the attention span of children. All of these games are beatable in less than 15 and a half hours.
Because you have to understand that the association we're going off of is how many, like, probably hundreds of hours we put into the complete saga when we were kids.
Okay.
It's definitely skewed.
Well, the completion time for Lego City Undercover is 50 and a half
about-
hours, so it's much bigger.
Yeah.
We're talking about attention span of us as kids versus kids now.
True.
I was
that is
microdosing
true.
on Ritalin.
Listen. I have the attention span of a child as a 23-year-old. Imagine what it must have been like when I was a kid. Okay.
All right. So
that's all I'm gonna say.
Now, for the next highest game, what is everyone's pick? The one that is a licensed Lego game.
Oh, still Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
I'm gonna die on that Doom Mountain.
I'm gonna switch my answer because I was originally gonna say the same thing. I want to go with. Isn't there? Which one's like the Marvel Heroes one that's all like open world?
Marvel
there's
Superheroes
two of
1
them.
and 2 are both like that.
Yes, and I'm gonna go with the second one being the longest.
Okay. Brett?
They got some Batman, some DC ones in there, right?
They do.
Oh yeah, they got 3 of them.
I don't know which one. I'm just.
I'll give it to you if you get the franchise correct.
Yeah, all right. I'll be the Batman DC boy then if Wyatt's gonna.
Alrighty, we're spreading them out.
That's depressing, Brett.
Yeah, you are all incredibly wrong. 100% it is Lego Star Wars. The complete
really?
saga.
I thought you were gonna surprise us, damn.
No, because you have to remember, Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga is 2 games smashed together.
Yeah.
So
true.
It is 13 and a half hours. Coming up behind it, so technically if you put both Lego Harry Potter games together, it would beat it.
Harry Potter!
Because the Lego Harry Potter games are each about the length of Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga. So it does beat out if you include both of them, but going by individual games, because the Complete Saga has been like repackaged and sold as a complete game together, like merged hub and everything, they are the longest main story in a Lego game.
Can we just also appreciate Traveler's Tales have made so many Lego games,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't think there's a single one that would be considered bad.
There's a couple that are not great, but most of them are pretty old, and we're just like Lego Rock Band. I don't think anyone liked that game particularly much. Lego The Hobbit is weird because from what I recall, it only goes up to the second Hobbit movie because they didn't just follow the book story afterwards, so it just kind of is unfinished.
I mean, we're still struggling to come up with like ones that are not like at bare minimum enjoyable.
Yeah, it's like weird ones or things that are very much targeted just towards children, like Lego Ninjago is a thing I don't think.
Like Lego Rock Band or Rock Band, whichever one it was, is like that is just like that's a bad idea from the start. You know what I mean?
Well, you remember the Lego Rock Band and the Rock Band games for the DS where you had that really weird attachment analog.
Yeah,
What
dude, that's what I had. I had the Lego Rock Band DS game with the weird little arm thing that went on it.
Yeah,
it was horrible. But yeah, that's the Lego games. Most of them are pretty well received. I think Lego's Avengers is technically the worst mainline Lego game from review scores, something like that. But because Marvel Superheroes 1 and 2 are just better. Lego Avengers is just like the story of the Marvel movies, but the other ones are like original stories and everything. So I went on a little bit of a Lego binge going through weird information about these games once the Star Wars trailer dropped. So I was like, it's very interesting.
Oh, I was confused. Did I play the... No, I played Superheroes 2. I didn't play the Avengers.
Yeah. All right. So Lego is out of the way. I think we're all very excited for this Lego game to come out. Looks pretty great. I'm just happy to have some games coming out that are classical. Just have some fun for a little while. It's probably not going to break the world or anything, but it is a neat little game. So, excited.
Yeah.
Now for the bad news about Lego Star Wars.
No!
There are reports of there being extensive crunch involved in the making of this game.
Is anybody surprised?
I don't think anyone is surprised about this. The main takeaway from this is Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga has taken 5 years of development time, during which TT has not released another Lego game. Right?
Yeah.
So it is.
They're putting a lot of chips in this one.
They're putting a lot of chips in this game.
For obvious reasons.
Because I think with the reception of the sequel trilogy in general, they're expecting the game to be a lot better, right? It needs to be real good.
Yeah. The only way to view the sequel trilogy is through the eyes of Lego comedy. That's the only way you can enjoy them.
Yeah.
I'm going to remain silent.
And it also certainly looks like the target audience for this game is a lot wider than before, because this has a lot of things that are going to appeal to older players.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the original trilogy and whatnot being like remade inside of this game.
Such as the mumble mode.
the classic mumble mode.
The best feature in any video game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the crunch and apparently low morale was the main issue after certain things that happened early on in development. There were some little issues of just like direction of the game and whatnot going on. So there was like a restart of work essentially that led to some people getting low morale. So other people didn't take days off that they should have taken and whatnot, and worked overtime. This is a common story, unfortunately, for the games industry.
Yep.
I think it's a hard call to make with this. I think you can very clearly see from these trailers that there's a lot of passion going into these games, because I think Lego and Star Wars are two things that are very easy to be passionate about as someone making
especially
games
together, because they overlap outside of the game too.
And that like Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga is legendary as a game. Like it is one of those classic games that has this reputation for just being a like near perfect thing at the time. Maybe it hasn't aged super well, but it's definitely still a fun game if you get your hands on it.
Yeah.
Well, and even kind of what Alex was saying is that's like outside of the games, like the Lego Star Wars sets have been probably some of the most like popular sets that Lego has, and
I think
it's been around. Yeah, it's been around for so long.
It's like Star Wars is almost synonymous with Lego in some ways now because of the fact that the sets have been around for so long. All right, so moving on from Lego Star Wars, we got a couple other bits of smaller news. So, Dark Souls, good old Dark Souls. We all like Dark Souls. We're going to talk about this because.
What did I miss?
So Dark Souls
I don't know
happened. Dark Souls 3 has a new exploit that was found that allows you to run code on someone else's computer.
Yep.
Oh.
What?
This was found earlier today.
Or
I think late last night, maybe.
Late last night.
Oh my god.
So the PvP servers have been shut down. You can't currently play Dark Souls 3 online because of this. It is I believe, an engine level issue that they found. Actually, it's not just Dark Souls 3, it's all 3 Dark Souls games.
Oh, no.
Yep. So, all of them have gone down. This was found after someone on Discord posted a message saying they had found this security vulnerability and mailed it to FromSoft.
That's nice.
It's something called an RCE method. I don't know exactly what this means, but it is a severe security flaw that allows people to essentially remotely run code. Not good.
Holy crap.
The nice thing with this is that nobody has this maliciously as of right now. The person that found it is not like a person that was trying to hack someone. It's just someone messing with the game. So
thank God that these people exist.
It was someone testing it for security.
Thank God that's the person that found it, because otherwise, oh my god.
Can you imagine if Dark Souls, if the Dark Souls community was anything like the League of Legends community?
Oh god.
So he apparently sent the methods of that being executed to FromSoft so that they know about it, and they immediately took the servers down. So good to see fast response. The major concern point with this is that this is something that likely also exists in Elden Ring because it's an engine related problem.
No.
So hopefully this gets resolved quickly, because it's going to be real rough if it doesn't. Yeah, just a neat, weird little bit of info that's happened with FromSoft games, because people still constantly play these online. So Lots of testing still going into them. All right.
Really is the Dark Souls of computer security.
Oh my god.
Bum, bum, bum.
And that's when Brett gets kicked off the show.
Okay, so good old Raven Software. This is not technically tied in with the Activision-Blizzard stuff. Raven Software testers have formed a union, or are in the active process of forming a union.
The first in the game industry.
The first in the American game industry.
Yeah.
There are unions outside the game industry in America. America, though, has been a little bit behind the curve on this.
As we are for most things.
Surprise, surprise. Yeah.
Like, America's just very anti-union. There's a lot of sentiment against it because the way corporations are kind of held up in high regard.
Only on company points, not with the individual.
Yeah.
No, weird how that works.
So, union of 34 people is being formed at Raven Software. It is mostly testers, from what I can find, and has started after the big layoff spree that happened last month, after that led to an ongoing strike. So, Raven's having some problems right now. I think we'll get into how the acquisition might factor into this later, but yeah, it's the current ongoing situation at Raven, which for people who don't know is one of the Call of Duty studios.
So. I forget, is Raven solely located in Wisconsin, or do they have branches otherwhere?
I think Raven is in California, from my knowledge.
And
they're Wisconsin.
Primarily,
yeah.
I think they primarily work on Warzone, right? I think
they do multiplayer stuff.
I believe
their Warzone Cold War has been their multiplayer area of focus right now.
They used to make actual games, but then not anymore.
Well, so did Neversoft, so did Beanox.
Yeah, and they are the Wisconsin-based studio. All right. It's pretty rough for them right now. Moving on, EA is disappointed with Battlefield 2042.
Oh,
how it has performed.
Wow.
Who could have thought?
It is looking at all the options.
Standards that good.
For those who don't know, we did a little stream of Battlefield 2042 just a little while ago. We wanted to play the game, get some impressions with the EA Play free trial.
It was an attempt to play the game.
We streamed for about 2 hours. We played maybe 30 to 40 minutes of Battlefield successfully over the course of this time. The VOD is still up. You can go watch it. It's a nightmare.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
It was one of the worst running games I have ever played.
It's so much of a mess that we went from one mess to another mess called Halo Infinite and enjoyed it way more.
We had so much good to say about Infinite after we played 2042.
Oh.
It just lowered our expectations to rock bottom.
We had fun. I mean, I still have fun playing Halo Infinite. I'm the only one here that still does, but that's besides the point.
I'm just still making my way through the campaign, so I had to cut back on the multiplayer to do this. Yep. Yeah, I think it's just the writing was on the wall, and it's very interesting seeing that they're okay, they're looking at all the options after the fact. Maybe just have delayed the game and given it time to become good would have been the best option. But
so this is one of those things where I'm gonna be the guy that says that I don't think that there was any hope from the beginning because they already gave them more time than 5 had because that was the thing that everyone said.
Yeah.
And then their first thought was, what if we started making a battle royale? And then very clearly, halfway between making the idea in the first place and release, someone was like, wait a sec, everybody's gonna hate this. We should just make a normal Battlefield game. What are we doing?
See,
and then they had to cobble it together.
That's the thing, is that a lot of people will focus on the bugs and the technical stuff, which is very fair because it should not have launched in that state. No Battlefield should launch in the state that it does, but that's besides the point. The other thing, if you could put that aside, just from a core design level, it's so flawed that it would have needed not just more time, it would have needed so many changes to the design, and
they
not
would have had
just
to start over pretty much.
Yeah, basically, because just as a Battlefield game, it's just a bad like core concept of the specialists, where it's just it's an apple that's rotten to its core, is basically.
Not a good game.
Yeah.
I get mad every time we talk about this. Like,
it's one of the few games I can't even recommend like downloading the free trial to play it because it was so actively unfun.
Wasted space on your computer.
I think more than a couple times I've dropped the F-bomb whenever we've talked about this on stream because I get so inconsolably upset.
What's important to understand is that I think everyone here has loved Battlefield games before.
Yes.
And we just want to play a good new one.
Yeah.
And they keep not making a good one that isn't... Like, I just want a sequel to Battlefield 4 that's good, right? And in modern times... Because Battlefield 1 is pretty good past. Wyatt is always going to champion Battlefield 5.
No! Well, yeah, kinda. I was gonna say, if you get me to not like your Battlefield game, that says a lot because I still like something wrong. Because I like 5, okay? That makes me a weirdo. And the fact that I don't like your Battlefield game says so much.
I mean, you shot your one fan in the head.
Yeah, pretty much. and then said some stupid one-liner.
Because the bizarre thing was, Wyatt and I have been playing ESO. We've talked about this before. We played the big Cyrodiil PvP in ESO. Better Battlefield experience than any Battlefield game recently.
Oh my god.
PvP in ESO is awesome. It's so much fun. And we kept talking about like, dude, this is like Battlefield with swords, basically. Like this, we're getting our Battlefield fix through a game that came out.
So you like plant down siege equipment. You can go destroy enemy siege equipment. You can take keeps, and there's all the stuff you can do of just like go do a quest if you don't want to participate in PvP. It's great.
There's PvE content in the PvP zone. It's great.
We did a dungeon in it. It was great. All right.
It was so cool.
Play good games and not Battlefield 2042. Unless they fix it. Hey, if they fix it. I don't know how, but if they do, sure, go play it. But
again, I've said this before. Just forget about the whole 2042 part. Release release Portal as its own thing, and just focus on development for that because it's the one thing that people actually like.
Because if they did that would probably stall people long enough for them to hunker down and actually make a Battlefield game. If they just don't try to innovate. Right, they need to stop trying to innovate and just make Battlefield 4 again, but modern.
Which is not something you typically want to say about a long-running franchise. You want them to innovate and try new things.
But every step they've taken is a step backwards.
Can't do that.
It also, to me, I think the biggest problem felt like no one on the team was actually leading the team, and there was no consistent direction for what the game was trying to be, and that's just a death sentence when your game doesn't have a consistent direction.
And I think that speaks to as well the whole idea where like legacy Battlefield fans, Battlefield 4 fans are gonna love 2042. Like this is a love letter to Battlefield 4 players.
That's what they kept advertising that as.
They kept saying that, and it's not that.
Like, what do you think? We're stupid? You think they wouldn't notice?
It's the exact. Like, on a very surface level, if you see screenshots of it, it kind of makes sense because it's a more modern setting. The UI, when it, even though it's terrible, like, visually kind of looks like 4, but, like, design? No, not at all. It's not like any Battlefield game. Okay,
all right.
I'm going to stop now before I get a pop-up.
So, last thing before we start talking about the big news. 2 games are coming out in the very near future, Dying Light 2 and Pokemon Legends Arceus. Both of these games have had rough developments from some perspectives and have presented themselves in weird ways and had mixed opinions. And both of them are seeing the exact same reaction now, which is as people are getting closer to release and influencers and whatnot are getting their hands on the game, reviewers are starting to give some first impressions. Nearly everything's been positive for both games.
Crazy.
Yep.
I'm rooting for both of them because I love Dying Light. I used to love Pokemon, and I was so adamant I'm not going to get Legends Arceus because they have broken my trust. If this game comes out and reviews are as good as they look like they might be, I'll have to get it at some point because
it's
everything I've heard from people who've gotten their hands on it, all positive. There's been like one or two negative things. Of course, the visuals in the environment are pretty bad, but the gameplay is apparently great.
Well, and I've been hearing too that it's not anything like a Pokemon game. And the back of my mind, I'm not a Pokemon guy at all, but I know a lot of friends, I know a lot of people that are Pokemon fans, and I'm almost like, I feel like that's what they need right now. It's just something that isn't Pokemon.
Well, because everyone that's attached to Pokemon is attached to the Pokemon, right? They're not attached to the gameplay mechanics.
Yeah,
unless they just refuse to innovate.
The gameplay has stayed the same for like
ever.
Over 20 years.
It's like look at the popularity of Pokemon Snap and the old Pokemon like Gale of Darkness Coliseum games. All the spin-offs have always done incredibly well because people love Pokemon as a theme, right? It's not even about the gameplay. So
which speaks to like, the design of these creatures and what they mean to people.
And the power of nostalgia.
It's probably the reason they haven't had to innovate on their formula because they don't need to, And I think it seems like Sword and Shield was definitely like the breaking point.
Which is funny because Sword and Shield got very good reviews again from most people.
It shouldn't have.
But yeah, that's the reviews were mostly from people that weren't huge Pokemon fans and were playing through it the first time, and it was their shiny new Switch Pokemon. And you can tell that maybe influenced scores to be higher than they should have been. So,
100%.
Not to say that Sword and Shield is a bad game. I don't think it's like an actively awful game, but I think if you play any other monster catching game on the Switch, even the indie ones, you're going to see that there's a large gulf in terms of actual gameplay in almost all of them.
Even compared to other Pokemon games, it's just not very good.
It's like Monster Hunter Stories is still, I think, the best Pokemon game that's ever come out.
Yeah.
The stories too.
And Temtem came out, which I think a lot of like especially legacy Pokemon fans went to because I feel like it just
that's where the competitive crowd is right now because Temtem is very competitive in terms of its design.
Yeah,
I want to have a long talk about Temtem someday. So put that on your mental list.
We're gonna have a Temtem. I better start playing it again.
Temtem's fun, good game. Just excited to see it actually release at some point. All right,
it's still in like early access. Didn't that launch like 2 years ago or something at this point?
I mean, that's pretty regular for early access. And Temtem was always open about the fact that they didn't have funding, so they needed the funding from early access to keep going.
I get that's pretty that is a long time, man.
Project Zomboid has been in early access for like 10 years, 8 years, something like that. So, not even close to the longest. Yeah, it's been very surprising seeing these thoughts on Legends Arceus, so I'm interested. Dying Light 2 also, I think, has had startlingly good first impressions from a lot of people.
Were most of people's worries about that it seems overly ambitious?
That, definitely. And the fact that it was revealed, like 5 or 6 years ago? And had this like big E3 presentation and then went radio silent for like 3 years.
I mean, out of all the games that announced themselves early, I feel like I have more faith in the Dying Light franchise than anything else because you've seen the amount of support that Dying Light 1 has gotten.
Because the expectations for Dying Light 2, I think, are very different from the expectations of like a Pokemon game, right? Where the fan base for Dying Light doesn't care if Dying Light 2 is actually good. What they care about is if the gameplay stands up to the first game, right?
Yeah.
So as long as they get that right, people will play it because
my hope is that because Techland have been making zombie games for a long time now. I mean, when did the first Dying Light come out? Like 2012, something like that.
2014.
2014. Okay, excuse me. And they haven't gotten the writing down to put it nicely.
Because like Dead Island, which they made before, did not have a focus on writing at all. It was goofy ARPG fun. So
yeah. Oh, Dead Island. That's what I was thinking. That was like 2000.
It was like 2010, 2011.
2010. So yeah, like I said, they've been making zombie games for a long time. It just But even if like, you know, Dead Island was trying to be goofier, it wasn't like it took itself too seriously to be goofy almost.
I
And it was
mean, not
also
the
in stark
first game, but they
contrast
started to
with
get
it.
more serious as it went on. Which is where that like why they made Dying Light originally is they had that gulf of like, okay, Dead Island is not serious enough for people. It's too out there, and it's also the gameplay was aging pretty poorly. So they made the revamp that was Dying Light, which people had at first the same reactions that they're having with Dying Light 2. Dying Light 1's first reactions were overwhelmingly that the color palette is dull, which it is.
We're in Brown
I'm not
Town.
going to disagree with that. It still
Yep.
is dull, but it's so fun that you forget about it because it's such a good game.
It holds up the gameplay very, very well. And my hope is that with 2, it seems like they're focusing more on story, which I like because
Definitely.
I want a Dying Light game with a good story.
I want a zombie game with a good story that isn't made by Naughty Dog.
It's true.
That reminds me. So a very quick thingy. Can you imagine The Last of Us 2 with a mumble mode?
That's pretty great. That would be fantastic.
I'm trying to think of like my favorite scene is like the barn scene where like I'm not to give away spoilers, he talks to Ellie about stuff in the past, whatever, their relationship. I'm just trying to imagine that all mumbling. And just but no, anyway. I hope it's a good story because it seems like the choices that you're making in the story affect the world in some way. So I think it's gonna at the very least have some really cool gameplay effects, right? But it just like if they can nail the gameplay, have a good story, I think we have like a really special thing on our hands. Like if the gameplay is tweaked, improved, polished,
I love that we
have
can
like
hear
even
Wyatt clapping his hand to accentuate the point.
I'm doing like the fist. I'm doing like the fist into my hand sort of thing, kind of like trying to hammer home the point. Like if we can just have like a better playing Dying Light with a like even a decent story, I think we have something kind of special on our hands.
Just like a consistent story. Because Dying Light 1 has a couple of moments that are pretty good, and they have some cool set pieces, but the actual plot of what's happening is so bare bones.
The villain is so laughable and so bad and trying to be it's like the worst.
It's a Saturday morning cartoon villain.
No, he's the worst written Far Cry villain ever.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the way to describe him. He's terrible.
He's just a bad boss.
But he's also trying to be like he's trying to say a lot of like thing like he
tries to do the boss insanity thing, right? Where he's giving you these philosophical messages about life, except all of them are really stupid.
It's all about like what it is to be a man. He's just like that's what it means to be a man, like 10 times, and it's just.
And like, there's at no point do you ever think this is a cool.
Why are you trying to be Why are you trying to be John Esposito in Far Cry 6?
Or any of them? Like pick any. Like, what do you imagine it like a generic Far Cry villain?
That is pretty true. I think Giancarlo Esposito in Far Cry 6 is a better done version of the villain in Dying Light.
Yeah. But no, they just get like even a decently written story to it with some good characters. Like
the bar is
really
pretty low.
It is.
Oh.
And so my hope is like even if the game is exactly the same from a gameplay standpoint, but they have a better story, I'd be fine with that, to be honest, because the first game is aged so well. And I know it's not going to be the same. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of...
Yeah, there are some significant changes, but most of them are like side steps. They're not throwing away anything from the old game.
Because they don't need to.
Yeah.
You know, they can just build upon what they had instead of having to completely reinvent things. And that speaks to how well the first game was designed.
And what I will say for the gameplay factor, for anyone that has played Dying Light 1, in Dying Light 1 you have a lot of these jerky camera motions and things where... the camera is very locked into Crane's head, so you are always in that like head position aside from when you dodge and whatnot, and it can be very motion sickness inducing.
It can get a little watching a...
And Dying Light 2, from what I've heard, does make a few changes to how the camera specifically works, to where it's got a little bit of slowing added now, so it's actually smoother motion most of the time and not the jarring side to side kind of things that will happen in Dying Light, so that way
Mhm.
you are less liable to get motion sick playing it, which I think is a neat adjustment, assuming it works and still maintains that like sense of speed that Dying Light 1 had at times.
Yeah, and I think the other big thing too is that I think what's the city in the first game? Haram, right? I think that's what
Yeah,
it's called.
Haram.
Yeah.
Is a pretty like dull looking like open world. Like it's fun to move around in because the parkour is really well done, but visually it's not super interesting because again a lack of like color and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
it seems like at least what we've seen in the second one, the setting is way more interesting.
I mean, I watched someone that they let a few content creators play through a side quest. I watched one or two of those the other day, and it is a day and night difference as to how the environment looks. It's so much better because everything's like slightly overgrown now. It has more of that, like a Last of Us Part 2, where you have that level where you kind of wander around in the city, where there's not really any stressful things going on. It's just wandering in the city. It has that feel of everything is slightly overgrown and very colorful and saturated.
It does seem like very similar to the evolution that like Last of Us 1 to 2 had, where 2 everything like you said was more overgrown and things are like the apocalypse is kind of settled in a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so it seems like it's a very similar thing because it is taking
it's much further
I don't know
down
how
the line
many
than Dying
much
Light
further
1.
down the line. Yeah.
Because Dying Light 1, I think it was like an isolated incident for a while until towards the end, and then Dying Light 2 is like, nope, it's not an isolated thing anymore. Here's the end result of what happened. So it's very interesting.
Right.
All right, moving on to our big topic of the day. Microsoft did a thing. Microsoft bought Activision-Blizzard.
Microsoft did the equivalent of a backflip in the gaming industry.
Yep.
Is what we in Halo call a reversal.
This is the sort of thing. So I think all of us, you can go back and watch our reactions to Microsoft buying Bethesda a while back, and we were all, oh, this is like a huge acquisition. This is going to change the gaming landscape a little bit. This is like...
The thing is, there's so much good and so much bad about this. I don't know what to think anymore.
I think that is the overwhelming majority of people about this acquisition.
Yeah.
It's just like, we're going to have to wait and see what happens, because as of right now, this could be good. It could be really bad. So we'll see. But let's go into that. Let's go into why this could be really good and really bad. So basic details of this acquisition. Microsoft has put down a massive amount of money into this acquisition.
Truly a sinful amount. God himself would cry if he saw it.
Yep.
Which he clearly didn't.
So I don't think we know the total value of what the money going into this. It's a very large number. I'll find the figure that we have for now.
I think the common consensus is like 6.7 billion. I think is the
the
6.7 or 60 or something like that.
No, that was Bethesda, Wyatt.
Yeah.
That was Bethesda.
No. This is like 60. Oh my god.
This is $69 billion. This is the kind of estimate right now.
Nice.
Yep.
So someone has to say it.
Something to remind people with this kind of purchase. So that is the down payment on this. That is the cost just to acquire Activision Blizzard. Yep. Microsoft is now going to be
Codex Golden Parachute.
Now they're going to be paying salaries for everyone. Any costs that are involved in either restructuring or changing how some of these studios work. There are so many prices that go into this, and it's going to be like, this is the kind of thing where there are going to be long-term impacts for this for both Microsoft and Activision Blizzard going forward for a long time. I think it's going to be very curious to see what this looks like in 2 or 3 years. As of now, nothing is really changing. I think that's the important note for a lot of people, is that nothing is majorly changing this year, because they've said it's going to take around I think the end of the financial year is when this probably is going to go through. So until the deal finishes and they are like positioned and everything is ready for this restructuring and Microsoft owning them, until that point, which is probably 6 months to a year and a half away, there aren't going to be sweeping changes at Activision-Blizzard. I would probably expect as of now we're not going to get much news about this for a while because they're in the process of figuring out what's going to happen. One major thing, Bobby Kotick, almost certainly gone.
Thank God.
Unfortunately, with a golden parachute,
with a golden parachute, because he is a CEO.
The thing is, someone has to tell him that.
Yeah, he's going to be that wandering vagrant who's wondering why he's not allowed inside the studio.
Every time he addresses this, he's like, "Yeah, we'll be around."
Yep. You better not be.
So once the deal officially closes, Phil Spencer will be the person that is at the head of Activision-Blizzard as well as Microsoft Gaming, which is already where he is. So I think all of us can say Phil Spencer is a much better, at least, absolutely, unless something comes out of the woodwork, right? Phil Spencer is, I think, one of the few people that hasn't had anything really bad said about him, is generally well respected in the industry.
I can hope beyond hope that he's a decent person in a leadership position, but what are the odds of that?
I mean, we haven't really heard a lot of like stories or something like that coming from Microsoft or coming out of Microsoft, I should say.
Which is probably a good thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Either that or it's so well
really,
concealed.
really bad. But
I mean, you've seen the amount of money that they can just throw at things. They absolutely have hush money for things if they need to.
But it's not really about hush money. It's about the fact that like Microsoft is such a large entity that it is impossible to prevent leaks, right? Like you cannot keep something from leaking here.
Because it's not just Xbox. It's also Windows. It's also sometimes phones that people look at, that people point at and laugh at all the time. It's about laptops. They're a hardware and software company. Like
thousands of employees in every single subdivision of the company, which there are probably hundreds of. So, absolutely massive company. Probably pretty hard to run a tight ship there. I would be very surprised if we got major, like a Ubisoft size expose coming out about Microsoft if it hasn't already happened. Maybe we'll get something about an individual studio at some point if they're bad, but I doubt Microsoft's core team is gonna be the problem if that happens. Although I will happily eat my words if that does happen at some point.
Yes.
Important to note that
thing
here.
Or another. We're just
going off of the information that is available right now.
Right now, as the recording of this episode, but also the way that Phil Spencer has like completely changed course with Xbox after like Xbox One's launch.
In a very good way.
Because he wasn't at the head of Xbox when Xbox One launched. It was someone else. I forget his name off the top of my head.
Yeah, so do I.
But you can tell the exact point that he was given that position, things began to change. Like, very quickly.
They started focusing on the Xbox One as like a media device and less as a gaming console, because it lost that generation essentially in sales.
Lost.
Significant number of sales were not made of the Xbox One.
And not to say it's all, Phil Spencer's doing, obviously. There's a lot of other people that are probably oh my god,
responsible for changes.
Thank you. I can't use words right now, but it's a lot of that I think was through his leadership, because they understood that like we lost this battle, where can we go for ourselves so that we don't have to compete with PlayStation anymore, which was the smartest move they could have done, and it also just made a better like market overall, I think, because it's filling in a space that we didn't have before.
Yep. Yeah, we're complimenting Phil Spencer a lot right now, but I think when you look at this acquisition, this is a far bigger deal than the Bethesda acquisition, because these teams are making some of the largest games on the planet, right? Call of Duty is a juggernaut. Always has been, probably always will be. You can't forget the Candy Crush studio with King. So, mobile game market, very much well owned. And then all of the Blizzard properties, even if people don't actively like World of Warcraft, people still have a lot of attachment to the Warcraft license. So
people are still playing Overwatch religiously.
Yeah, Overwatch, StarCraft still has a following, even though it hasn't gotten an update in many, many years. Diablo 4 is around the corner. So all this stuff going on behind the scenes, I think, is putting Microsoft in a very strong position. They have said that Call of Duty specifically, for now, is going to remain multi-platform.
For now.
The for now is not like a thing in the tweet, right? The tweet that Phil Spencer put out is not saying they are planning to change this, and it probably would be a bad move if they did, because Call of Duty makes so much money that, like, if you cut off PlayStation is the largest market for Call of Duty by a significant degree. I think a lot of those people probably aren't very tuned into the gaming landscape, and if they just stop selling Call of Duty, they probably just don't know what happens, right?
Yeah.
Unless Sony starts pulling has no more ads, so
that's so funny.
I just think it's the kind of thing where if I was not tuned into this news, right, and then suddenly Call of Duty stopped showing up on PlayStation, I would be like, what?
What?
What happened?
I need to get World War II fixed somewhere.
Yeah. So Call of Duty specifically seems like it's going to remain multi-platform. Sony also put out a response saying they expect it to remain multi-platform for at least the near future because of marketing deals and other contracts that they have. Because like if an acquisition like this happens, contracts are not null and void. There's nothing changing that. It's just the ownership has changed. They still have all the old contracts. So at least until, because I think the marketing contracts and whatnot renewed in 2020, at least until probably a 5-year deal, we likely won't see changes to this until like 2025 at the earliest. Still may not be great for Sony, because Call of Duty has often had like bonuses for playing on PlayStation. I expect those to be gone for the most part going forward.
Which wasn't the case for the longest time. I think during like the 360 PS3 era, that was mostly an Xbox thing.
This is new with the PS4 and 5, pretty much. Is you get like a bonus map or early access to a mode, something like that if you played on PlayStation.
I remember, PS4 owners had that that one like horde mode.
Yeah.
Mode for Modern Warfare for
the like firefight equivalent.
Yeah, and by the time that mode was available on other platforms,
nobody was interested.
Nobody was interested because Cold War was already out.
Yeah.
So like, who cares?
So I expect that unless those have already been made deals, nothing like that is likely going to keep happening. I think the big push here for Xbox is that people are going to see, okay, if I want to buy Call of Duty every year on the PS5. It's costing me $60 to $70 every time. If I get it on Xbox, it's Game Pass.
Yeah.
I'm not paying anything for that, aside from the like monthly subscription, but I'm probably trying other games, right? It's a much bigger library that is easily acquirable. So, big deal for Microsoft either way. Assuming they put all of these on Game Pass, I think that's going to be an interesting thing going forward. Does Game Pass get everything from Activision-Blizzard going forward? They've said they want to put a lot of older titles onto Game Pass.
That would be pretty cool.
So, I'm very curious to see if like Call of Duty is it a day one Game Pass game going forward. I think that will be very interesting to see.
Which, speaking of which, it's also important to note that Call of Duty's like yearly release schedule might actually be halting, which is another interesting.
God.
Yeah, which is another. I mean, it's sort of not related, but it was making me think like if it still is a yearly franchise, right? And people who like only play Call of Duty, because there's a lot of people out there that just play Call of Duty. Like Game Pass is probably going to be the greatest thing ever made for those people. You know what I mean?
Sure,
like wow, what a deal. If you're a huge COD fanboy or just someone who only plays that, like that's the only way for you to go at this point, and you would be saving yourself so much money.
Yeah. So there was a Twitter thread that went out where one of the people in it is a known leaker, supposedly had an email from Activision that was in response to the acquisition with some requests for things from Xbox, essentially, that would be done. We don't, I think, know if this is true or not, or if it's a valid leak, but some of those things were multi-year development time, like 2 to 3 years between games. All 3 studios working on the same games, so not doing the split studios, but using the entire development team for every game.
Because that is an important thing to note. Even though Call of Duty was a yearly franchise, they had like 3 different developers working.
Yeah, they had 3 studios, and often 2 of them would be working on the same game and rotating.
Yeah.
So it was usually around a 2-year development cycle. With this, they want to be going to 3-year development cycles around, and having all 3 teams putting all the main power on that. Now, the stuff here that I think is to be taken with a grain of salt, the leak had also said that they wanted to remain on both platforms, and like it was written as a demand almost of them staying on both platforms, as well as some like interesting restructuring things that are very technical and not really, I think, relevant to anything. But the main takeaways were all 3 studios to work on the same project and the multi-year release schedule.
Almost like they should have been doing that from the start.
Crazy.
Well,
almost like that.
I think it's if they're developing spin-offs or something, that's fine, right? Like if you have Final Fantasy games developed like they are by different teams, you're fine, because every game has a different story, a different set of things. They're not in the same world, they're not related, gameplay mechanics change constantly, right? Then it's not a problem. But Call of Duty is meant to build on itself every year. Right? It's meant to be like an update to the same game.
Even if the stories and characters aren't followed up on, it's still like the mainline series.
But the multiplayer especially is meant to be built upon, not
especially now over the past couple of years, because it's especially with Warzone now, it's like, okay, Warzone isn't changing, we're just adding more.
That reminds me, the other important thing of this leak was a call for a battle royale to either be developed or Warzone taken to be its own thing, completely detached from a yearly release, but just to exist as a second title for teams to work on as necessary to keep it up to date, of a battle royale Call of Duty game that is entirely separate from anything else.
Again, something they should have been doing.
What should have happened to begin with.
I never understood their obsession.
And specifically that it is free to play.
Here's Cold War. We gotta put in all this Cold War stuff, even though the way that these 2 games are balanced have nothing to do with each other, and it totally doesn't work.
Yeah. So I think it is very likely Call of Duty remains on every platform. It's just we're going to see in the next release, is it day 1 Game Pass? Because I know for me, like, I haven't played a Call of Duty game since I think the beta for Cold War was the last time I launched one, and before that it was Black Ops 2. So I do not play these games yearly. I love playing them, they're very fun, but I just don't see the need to get them yearly. If this was on Game Pass, I absolutely would play the newest one whenever it came out.
A great, yeah. And we were talking about this in chat, I think it was yesterday. I love Modern Warfare 2019 so much, and right now I'm imagining if that game had like a 3-year post-launch like support cycle, and that makes me so happy to think about. I mean, it makes me happy. It doesn't make me happy that it didn't happen, but thinking about it, I'm like, oh my god, that would have been great. Like, the game would have had so much more room to breathe. I think it would have just more content would have been added to it, and that makes me,
because you often get this feeling with Call of Duty where occasionally like a game will release that is worse than the last one in a lot of ways, and it feels like you're being pushed to move to a worse game. And I think that is the real negative of this yearly release schedule, is sometimes a game just doesn't land, and you...
Yeah, because you're going from a game that's had a whole year's worth of post-launch support through new weapons and maps and modes and whatever, and then you're going to a new one that has significantly less content, and because it's Call of Duty, you have no idea whether, like, at its core, it's even going to be better than last year.
You're flipping a coin.
No, exactly. And they're also games that are set up, like, they have battle passes, they have microtransactions, they have all this stuff to keep you engaged. They're set up to be games that are
Call of Duty is like a hobby in its own, right?
Yeah, but it, especially it started with 2019, where it's just like these games are set up to be like, they're designed to last. It feels like they're designed to last longer than a year, but it's like, why am I putting all my chips down in this one game when I know it's just gonna be forgotten?
They're gonna recycle it in a year. So
yeah.
I'm very curious to see what Call of Duty looks like a year from now. if we get a new game in a year, or if I assume it's going to be pushed back either way, right? I don't think the next Call of Duty is launching on a yearly release schedule. So, interested to see how this shapes out. That's the first major thing that we've talked about of this. I think the second behemoth here is Blizzard. So, Blizzard is in a state. Activision as a whole is in a whole state. And this is, I think, before we talk about Blizzard, let's talk about the whole personnel thing right now. Because we talked about Bobby Kotick. The company culture at Activision-Blizzard has been, like, infamously terrible as of right now, especially towards women. Just not good. The locker room dynamic has been what it's called a lot. I expect this is the thing that Microsoft is really going to be cracking down on.
I would hope so.
Yeah, that's the expectation, I think.
And a lot of observations have pointed to, like, this deal may not have even happened if that expose hadn't come out. If Activision Blizzard doesn't,
so rumors are floating around
that they have.
That Phil Spencer and the Microsoft teams got really interested in this acquisition when all this information about Activision came out, and they were like, "Okay, maybe we can fix this." So I think that's a very interesting.
I think
bit of
deep
info.
down it's can we capitalize on it, and then I think
it's both, right? Because they're not different; they're the same thing,
right?
Essentially, if you fix it, you capitalized on it, right? It's going to be a better system for everyone.
They work hand in hand, but it's not like they purely just had.
Yeah, we don't know if it's altruistic motives or not, but
I mean, it's probably not. But we don't know. But we don't know.
I mean, not for $90-something billion, right? Like. Or $60 billion, right? Not for that much. So I think it's very interesting to see where this is going to go. All right. So with this whole personnel change, we're not going to be seeing changes until this deal mostly closes, from what it sounds like. Aside from, I assume, Activision Blizzard trying to clean themselves up for the new bosses, I would guess.
Yeah. They've spilled their drink all over there at the front of their shirt, and now they're trying to wash it off.
I'm expecting one of the first things that Phil Spencer leads when this deal has officially closed and things are in place for Activision Blizzard to be fully owned by Microsoft is a cleaning of house, right? Like going through.
I hope so.
Seeing what studios are doing well, what isn't. I think we're probably going to see a couple of studios close under Activision Blizzard's umbrella here, solely because of the fact that they're not doing anything.
It could be they're not doing anything. It could also be, they simply cannot lay off or get rid of. They can't cut out the cancerous behavior without closing the company.
Yeah, it's also the case of like. Microsoft's going to be paying for every salary here. So are they going to be trying to cut costs in general? I don't know. We'll see. Microsoft hasn't had that in their playbook right now because they're making enough money from everything else they do that it doesn't really hurt them that much if the gaming division isn't super profit driven. But I think this might be the case where like they have just made such a large purchase and there's so many costs that are going to be associated with this that it's going to be necessary to cut some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to wonder, like, what state is Blizzard specifically going to be in a year's time?
Because, I mean, closing Blizzard would be just the...
I don't think they close it because of the name recognition, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like Blizzard is, I mean, not recently, but for the longest time, it's been such a beloved, like, name. It's been such a beloved brand.
It's been synonymous with gaming.
Yeah, and for the longest time, like, quality gaming, too. Maybe not so much in the past, however many years, but for the longest time, they made just like really great game after really great game.
Up until like a year after Overwatch released was the kind of golden age of Blizzard.
Yeah. I think that's fair. So yeah, I mean, because you look at it too, and there's just such an inefficient use of resources here. Like you have massive studios like Beanox, like Raven Software,
Toys for Bob.
Toys for Bob,
used at all
support studios, and they're just supporting their other franchises. And it just, again, it's such.
That's what makes this even more interesting.
Use of resources,
because that's the call that happened around midway through last year, where Activision said they're maneuvering a lot of their smaller studios to become support studios for the larger studios, and especially Call of Duty, I feel like Microsoft might be reversing that, right?
I would hope so.
And
Well,
moving these
especially-
people
I'd
back
like
to
to
their own
see-
studios.
I'd like to see what people can do when not under the COD thumb.
Well, and I think that all changes if this, if they ease up on the release of Call of Duty, it's like every 3 or 4 years or something. That gives like room for every single person to breathe. Like it gives it gives Treyarch and Infinity Ward time to breathe and really work on those titles. And then the smaller support guys that were there because of this yearly release schedule can probably go off and make the games they actually want to make,
Yeah. Especially because like Toys for Bob has made so many great games, especially games for kids, right? That it's such a shame that division has just been moved to be the Call of Duty support studio, right?
And Beanox made
too.
some great Spider-Man games back in the day. I think their last couple releases weren't amazing, probably due to some sort of Activision kerfuffle, but they made some great Spider-Man games. Neversoft has made a bunch of great games too. Like all of these studios were at one point capable of making quality games for people, so it was just sad to see them become support studios for Call of Duty. And
what I think the move here is that it's probably best for both Microsoft and the general consumer is for these secondary studios at Activision-Blizzard to become the AA studios that have been mostly missing in modern games. Mm-hmm. Get more of those like mid-budget games, right? Not massive AAA experiences, but things that are more targeted and less expensive to produce. Things like Skylanders, right? So
I also think it would really I think it would really diversify like their portfolio of games as well.
Absolutely.
For Microsoft at least. I think that would be I agree. I think that would be the smartest decision for them in that regard.
Yeah. So it's going to be super interesting to see what this looks like in a year. I think World of Warcraft is dead after this, legitimately.
Probably.
I think this is the move that is going to kill World of Warcraft, is that Blizzard's going to look at the amount of people working on it and be like, this is not working, and either call for a World of Warcraft 2 to actually be made, or just scrap it. That is my expectation. Move Warcraft into maintenance mode for the next 10 years and don't use the manpower to keep updating it because it's clearly not working, right? So I expect that as the fallout for Blizzard is mostly Warcraft related. I think Diablo's fine because Diablo 4, from what we've seen, looks to be shaping up pretty well. Right. I don't know what's going to happen to Diablo Immortal. I think the game is technically live in Asia. I think that game is live in Asia and just not here. I feel like BlizzCon might be gone forever now.
I'm okay with that.
I would be so
Especially
uncomfortable.
That means there's no Cosby room.
I would be so uncomfortable if I went to BlizzCon.
And I do wonder, do we see Overwatch 2?
Yeah. Because, look, despite everything, I think Ryan and I in the past have been like, this actually looks kind of cool.
Well, because like all the ideas of like a slightly co-op single-player Overwatch are exciting, but I don't. Yeah. They're taking this half stance of calling it Overwatch 2, but the multiplayer is just like an update to the old Overwatch.
Yeah, if you just play PvP, you can get almost the exact same experience just by playing the first game.
Like I think
both like kind of, it's like, okay, I mean that's kind of nice. Like if you don't care about any of that stuff, you still get to experience that concept, but at the same time it speaks to like a lack of.
I'm going to say a controversial statement here that I think a lot of people may not like. And that's okay, because I think this is a statement that the consumer probably shouldn't agree with.
I say that to you three all the time.
I am of the opinion that, hey, it's been like 5 years. Blizzard does not owe Overwatch players anything, right? I paid my $60. I was happy with the game that I received.
Controversial opinion.
And I would be.
Some people.
Well, I'm not done. I would be happy to pay for Overwatch 2, right? Like, I don't think they owe me Overwatch 2, right? So I think this is the case where like so many people are entitled to. They believe they are entitled to the changes in Overwatch 2. And so Blizzard took that mindset to heart and decided to do this half thing where they kind of make Overwatch 2 and they kind of just make an update to Overwatch and nobody's happy, right? I think you just have to go for it. You have to make a new game that is, sure, bring all the old heroes back, bring everyone back if you want to, but make it feel like a new experience, right? Don't make it be the same thing. Use the fact that we have the ability to make sequels, to make improvements to the game that are more substantial than just gradual changes.
And plus, I feel like, because if you had asked me like maybe a year or two after Overwatch came out, I would have disagreed with you and I've been like, no, this is the kind of game.
And again, wasn't Overwatch not even $60?
Hold on. I'm getting there. If you asked me 2 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, well, this doesn't really feel like the kind of game that comes out with sequels. It feels like the thing that's updated with time, kind of like, Team Fortress 2 or something. But because some people only paid $40 at launch, because there was a $60 version, there was a $40 version. And I also don't think the game has gotten a lot of crazy updates in the last couple of years, either through characters or maps.
It got huge updates for about 2.5 to 3 years. Then it got slow updates, then nothing.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that like at this point, I completely agree with you, because I don't think just having this game and then updating it every now and then is really what's going to keep people coming back. I do think a fresh start makes a lot more sense.
But what I think is the major problem with the fresh start is I think to everyone that is the better play. But is it too late? I think Overwatch has lost the player base that is loyal to it, right? Because they took so long, they haven't committed to a direction. Because I think if you say when you stop supporting Overwatch, okay, the team is moving on to Overwatch 2. There's not going to be updates to Overwatch. We will see you in 3 years with a brand new shiny game for you to play. Everyone would have been happy, right? Mm-hmm. But instead, they dragged the fan base along for 3 years almost, and now nobody likes it. I think it will obviously get players back if it launches, but I think you're going to have a much higher set of expectations lined up.
Keeping its players in a toxic relationship.
Yeah. All right, that's Overwatch. I think the dark horse here, to me, is Starcraft. I think Starcraft is going to come back because Microsoft specifically calls out Starcraft as a franchise that they want to bring over in their welcome to the new team and whatnot that they put out.
Weird.
Starcraft has not gotten an update in like 8 years. We've heard nothing about a new game. I think someone at Microsoft wants a new Starcraft to be made, and that's going to happen. Is my gut feeling.
This whole acquisition happened because that one guy was like, I want to make a Starcraft game.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if this acquisition really happened, because like a couple of execs at Microsoft were like, I used to love Diablo. I used to love Starcraft. Can we just buy the studio and make better ones?
I really, really hope the reason is that wholesome.
Because it's such a shame that Activision-Blizzard has gone directly into the toilet. So I think that there's, for Activision-Blizzard's employees, I think this is going to be mostly upsides, as long as you weren't, a really bad person.
Which you don't deserve any upsides.
There might be the unfortunate consequence of layoffs are probably going to happen, as it does when any major acquisition happens. So that's going to be sad and bittersweet for a lot of people. But, I think it's just a fact of life that it's going to happen. So going forward, I'm curious to see where these studios go.
What do you think?
Go for it.
How likely is it, do you think, that year goes by, the acquisition is, all the paperwork is done, it's officially happened, right?
Yeah.
What are the chances that nothing really changes in terms of just what we see as consumers? Things may have changed in the back end and behind closed doors, but
now you mean is this just game wise, or also personnel and executives?
Things that affect the consumer, I think, is why it's
yes, yeah. What are the chances where it just on our end it doesn't really seem like a whole lot's changed?
Is this assuming that all the changes that we've talked about are a given and have happened?
No, assuming those haven't happened. Call of Duty is here. It's still a yearly release, because I don't think this claim that it's not a yearly release has been like confirmed in any way.
No, it is not.
And so what I'm saying is a lot of what we're saying is like, how does this change for the better? But what if those don't happen? Like, what if we're still seeing Call of Duty every year? We're still hearing about a lot of, workplace
Then
stuff.
they don't. I don't think Microsoft has written those promises down in stone.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, what are the chances that that'll happen?
The
Or
only
nothing's
thing
happened.
that can hold them to it is mob mentality, and then even that because they're just so ginormous of a company.
I think there is a very negligible chance of no changes because you do not spend this much money to acquire these studios and not change what is obviously broken right now, right? Like that's the major thing where I'm like, okay, something is going to change. We may not see an impact for a couple of years because I think a lot of these studios probably are working on nothing, right? Or nothing aside from Call of Duty. So I think we're going to see Beanox and Toys for Bob taken off of Call of Duty and doing their own thing again, but we're not going to see that for a few years. So that's not going to affect the consumer. I think Call of Duty is the game that's going to change. So I don't think we see Call of Duty next year, first of all. I think we see the teams, if they're not rejoining, I think they're going to be working on entirely separate things from longer development cycles. I don't think Microsoft, because Microsoft has never been beholden to a yearly release schedule for pretty much anything, right? They've never done that. So I don't see them doing it with Activision. Because I think they know that they will have more goodwill and more money from these longer apart releases that are functionally a lot better. Especially with Game Pass, right? Because with Game Pass, all you need is to get someone subscribed, right? That's all you need. As long as they stay subscribed, you're making money. And so...
And the other thing is, if a game comes out that's part of, like, Microsoft's family, I guess, and it maybe isn't great, it's like, oh, that's too bad. I still have all these other Game Pass games.
It's like, I'm far less angry
service.
if a Microsoft game is bad because there's so many other games that I have access to.
But that's assuming you have Game Pass, because there's still a lot of people that, are probably somewhat in the Microsoft ecosystem, but don't want to put the money down for a subscription, or maybe just can't afford it.
Or maybe just don't. I think a lot of people may not be super interested in the games, because that's been a major sticking point with Game Pass, is there's certain genres that aren't well represented. There's the fact that it loses games, and sometimes will lose, like, full franchises of games that are very good. You hit that problem of, okay, well, a person that subscribed for that game series may be gone now. So I think what they're looking to do is establish... I think Microsoft's real end goal here is to have every month some big title releases on Game Pass. They're almost to that now. So looking forward, I think this is how they're going to try to position their studios, is getting a big title onto Game Pass every month in like 2 years, right? So that way you have this rotating cycle of hopefully every studio has the development time they need. They can take time away. There's room for games to be made in sustainable ways. And then you get this churning wheel, essentially, of different studios popping in and out to make sure that you have something filling that void.
And hopefully, too, you have those smaller studios at, like, Activision or whatever, that were support studios that are then making their own games that can kind of round out the variety of games on Game Pass. Like you were saying, there are some genres that aren't represented very well. Hopefully those smaller studios can make those games and kind of round it out as a service a lot more.
Especially just get some things that are not, I think, the big budget AAA Microsoft exclusive type games. You want to have more representation from that AA sphere of games that are maybe not as set piece heavy, but have really good core gameplay. So I think that's where we start seeing more expansion, is in that space. I don't think there's a chance the consumer sees no changes from this.
No, and I agree. I was just wondering,
unless unless Phil Spencer has a plan that none of us know about, which is just to do nothing.
And
okay, we have Call of Duty. Man. We can stop doing anything. We can stop doing whatever for the rest of our lives.
Now
I'm Call of Duty now.
All right, so we've bought this for all the money in the world, and we still have more. Time to enact my master plan, which is to do what a lot of our Game Pass buyers call a gamer move. I'm going to do nothing.
I hope that's not the case, and it's probably not the case given the state that Activision-Blizzard is in. But
yeah, and I also want to particularly call out one thing. So, in the release statement from Microsoft about Activision Blizzard, they name a bunch of franchises in their big title line: Call of Duty, Warcraft, Candy Crush, Tony Hawk, Diablo, Overwatch, Spyro, Hearthstone, Guitar Hero, Crash Bandicoot, and Starcraft. I think those are the franchises specifically that we're going to see new entries in a few years, right? Aside from I think Hearthstone is not going to change; it's just going to get updates. But
what's
so
that
it's not like
out?
So it's not like I don't like Crash Bandicoot. I do. Do we need another one?
Dude, people buy those games like hotcakes. There are some people that love Crash Bandicoot.
Four was great really and sold really well. Yeah.
Especially because they're less expensive to produce.
Yeah, he's kind of become like a modern meme now. So after that, and after the new game started coming out, people love him all over again.
Is there any major? I'm trying to rack my brain. Is there any major franchise that isn't on that list, or any notable franchise?
There's a lot of stuff that Vicarious has worked on that's just kind of been miscellaneous. Skylanders isn't here. They say Spyro instead of Skylanders, so I don't expect we see Skylanders again.
Can you imagine what would have happened if Activision still had Bungie when this was going down?
Oh God. More things would have been fixed.
Yeah,
although it probably would have been worth less, let's be honest.
All right. So yeah, I think that's the big list of franchises that are on the docket. It's like Guitar Hero, right? Imagine Microsoft comes out with a new Guitar Hero.
A new
what? You didn't like Guitar Hero Live, a game that literally everyone forgets.
But imagine how good Guitar Hero Live would be if it was included with Game Pass, and you didn't have to pay for it otherwise. Well, because Guitar Hero Live's whole structure was that you would pay a subscription to get this set of songs that was constantly expanding. Bundle that with Game Pass, you now have a massive game, right?
And then the inherent problem with Guitar Hero and Rock Band and all that stuff is it's the game, but then I have to spend all the money on top of it to get the big plastic instrument. It's now it's on Game Pass. I just got to get the plastic instrument now, and then the thing is already on Game Pass, and I just play it.
It is interesting in retrospect. I kind of feel like Activision really missed out on an opportunity to make their own Game Pass thing, because when they have a franchise that works, that makes money for them, they milk it to death. And so if they had a Game Pass style service set up a long time ago, I feel like things would be a lot different for them, because
I don't think they release games often enough.
Well, I mean, they used to, though. Think about how many Guitar Hero games they would.
Well, that's why people stopped. That's why Guitar Hero died. Is because they put too many. But
what I'm saying is, if they had released them on a Game Pass style service, right? Would the same thing have happened? Because then people are just paying a subscription; they're not paying as much for it, and that's such a huge factor as to why the series died out to begin with. Same thing with Call of Duty or something like that.
Yeah, I think the same thing would have happened, mostly because they have the issue that Game Pass has sometimes if there's not enough genre difference, but multiplied tenfold, right? There is, it's the same problem the Ubisoft subscription has right now, is there is no way that I'm going to subscribe to a Ubisoft thing for more than 1 month to finish a game, right?
I keep forgetting they have that.
Because it's just ridiculous. The games are almost all the same. Yeah. Right? And they're fun, but I don't want to play that enough to warrant a subscription. So it's the sort of thing where I really think Guitar Hero probably would have lived for maybe a year longer and then still died. I don't think that would have worked particularly well for them at the time, especially with the management at Activision having made so many missteps in the last few years that it's just... I could not see it going well. So yeah, I think that's how that would have ended. All right. So we've covered most of the big franchises that this is involving. One of the little ones that we haven't talked about is Major League Gaming. Do we see MLG make a return?
I have a
I
whole lot
don't-
less to say about
I-
this.
I don't care.
Because I think we just I'm not super knowledgeable on like the MLG specific, but I used to be knowledgeable on a lot of like specific esport things, and I think just like we've moved into so many other like specific esports things that I don't know.
There's not really
if
any space
MLG
left for it.
Yeah, MLG doesn't really
I
have to come back. I don't know.
I have a bad taste in my mouth still from when that guy from MLB The Show came to talk.
Hmm.
I'm just so not tuned into that like crowd
Yeah.
at all. Like I'll play competitive games very casually. It's just not, if it keeps going, that's great. If not, I don't really.
'Cause, like,
I don't
what-
really care.
COD competitive, even though they tried to get away from it with Modern Warfare, it still has its own thing. Halo still has its own thing. Rainbow Six has its own thing. All these things have their own thing, and like you look at like Rainbow Six specifically because that's the thing that I was talking about before that I used to be very knowledgeable about it. Is that like thousands of people tune into this stuff, and the prize pool is sometimes like crazy. The MLG doesn't need to like there doesn't have to be like a bigger organization like unless there's like horrible like bad things going behind the scenes at the Rainbow Six like finals or whatever. Like no one
Don't jinx it.
it's maybe I don't have to. There's no need to have like a big like overarching. Oh, look at all these wonderful MLG things. You've come to the big MLG show where we have this Rainbow Six thing, and then also later we'll have the Overwatch semifinals, and it's like, well, I miss when they were separate, when I didn't have to care for both, is what I can imagine people saying. So I don't know if that necessarily needs to be a thing that happens.
Yeah. All right. So the last two smaller studios I want to mention are Radical Entertainment, which hasn't released a proper game since Prototype 2.
Oh,
The Prototype 2
oh,
studio. So
man.
they've been a support studio for the other studios since then. They worked on Destiny wildly for a little while. They're around again, so we might see. I could see a new Prototype or something in the vein of that like open world style coming out again, because we don't really have anything in that space. I also think High Moon Studios is another big one.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a lot of smaller titles, but they did the Transformers games, they did Deadpool, they've done a ton of like third-person action, so I could see them being that AA third-person action thing happening.
They also worked on Destiny for a while. I think they had a lot to do with their like single-player content or something, or their like
Guys?
story mode content.
Story
Guys,
mode?
Transformers
What am I
games?
talking about?
Transformers
I'm talking
game.
So
I'm
you know
talking
what
about-
company we all have to get into, right?
about-
The most satisfying game ever.
Yeah, we got to make our pitch.
All right.
Also, I just tried to go onto High Moon's website and it's completely broken right now.
I mean,
It's probably been like that for
yeah.
like 10 years.
I don't know if it's changed.
It's literally just a blank screen with a bunch of links in the upper left. It's completely just not working.
Yeah, the last actual large-scale game they worked on was Destiny 2 as a support studio, and then Call of Duty since then.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see a lot of these smaller studios actually hopefully get to do something again. That's the real takeaway here, I think.
Well, and really, it's hopefully they can make the games they actually want to make and not just
Yeah.
support the other guys. Like that's my hope.
Yeah. All right. So moving on from that, I think the final topic I really want to hit on here is what is Sony going to do? Because
What indeed?
so my running theory here, we might talk about it because we're already running close to our time. We'll talk about console war stuff a little bit, probably next episode or the episode after, and go over a little bit of history. But the main takeaway from that stuff is that every time something like this happens, there is a response. Or a company goes under. That's historically what has happened. I don't think there's room for Sony to go under at any point here. I don't think anyone believes that. Because there's no other competition left, right? Nintendo is not directly competing with Sony or Microsoft. But Sony has had this rumored Game Pass contender thing that has been rumored for years at this point. They have the studios they've been buying, which are all smaller studios. I think with, first of all, the acquisition of Bethesda, and especially the confirmation that Bethesda's future projects are not cross-platform. Now with this, I think this is the line in the sand that's been drawn of, okay, Sony needs a response for this, or else there is some major issues going forward in terms of software.
Yeah. They can't rely on, because at that point, what happens now is that it's almost like Sony's becoming another Nintendo, where it's like, third party, who cares? We've got our own exclusives now. Whereas Sony has always been that, like, we have these really awesome, amazing exclusives, and we have all the third party stuff you guys want. Now that other like third party support is quickly going away.
Yeah. I definitely take what I say about this with a grain of salt, because I've absolutely been tainted by like rumors and stuff. But I don't know. It seems like their behavior in general is like their weird thing of like scrambling to hide the also coming out later on PC thing with Final Fantasy 16, is that it might be that they might be trying to kind of hunker down and make what I would consider personally the wrong decision here, and make things more exclusive than like on anything else. Which I guess Microsoft is also doing that in a way of like, oh, buying the big thing so that only we can have it. But even still, it's going to be on PC because of Game
You know what?
Pass.
No more God of War PC. Y'all couldn't behave.
It's taken away after release.
We don't want it on your Windows platform. Get out of here.
These are things that, you know, that because it had been rumored for a while that like God of War and some of the other things that have been confirmed to come were going to come to PC. But I feel like, I don't know now, and mostly this does come from like my like I don't know, they are not sure they have like a big presence in the West, and they have a lot of businessy people in the West, but they're primarily home base is Japan. So I don't know. It's gonna be it's like, and Japan is always kind of strange with like, you're gonna buy like it's just completely out of the question if like, oh, Microsoft is gonna come and buy up Final Fantasy. Like, what? That's weird. It usually goes the other way around, where like Square Enix has like fingers in like a bunch of different like Western studios like all over this side of the world where they can help things, but it usually does not go the other way around, where you're picking up stuff from Japan for $1 billion in the West. So I don't know. It leads me to believe that they might try to hunker down and do more like, just we got to pump out more exclusives. We got to make sure they're more exclusive. Yeah, I don't know. It would be cool if they had a Game Pass exclusive, but I don't know what the PC presence from Sony is going to be like. I don't know if we've had an equivalent thing to that before, where it's Microsoft, and their PC experience is doggy doo doo. So I don't know how it's going to stack up from someone who isn't as involved in the PC space.
Yeah.
As Microsoft.
So an important note is like JRPGs are always going to be the Sony console darling.
Yeah.
Or were we going to go for what?
Yeah, I think the other thing to keep in mind too is that with this acquisition, I think it like kind of speaks this unspoken message to everyone else now, that it's like no conglomerate is safe from Microsoft anymore. Like, if they can buy out Activision, like, no one's safe.
Yeah.
And that must be the most horrifying thing for Sony to
That's
realize.
also the main concern point from, I think, a American corporation standpoint, is Microsoft is now dangerously close to monopolizing.
Is the government going to step in and do anything about this?
Probably not, but I mean, it's happened before. Disney's been hit with that big monopoly stick once or twice. I think Fox got hit with it once, so it is possible.
Disney owns Fox.
It's
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's a funny little thing, but
it hurts.
there are historical instances of these things happening. So I would not be surprised if Microsoft makes another, like, if Microsoft attempted to buy Square Enix, I think there would be repercussions at that point.
There's already repercussions now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming, but
this is that they're getting dangerously close, Mark. I think the big thing from Sony that I think we can take away from the past few years is Sony has been pretty spiteful. To be honest,
they do not play well with the other kids in the sandbox.
So I think they are taking this as a personal attack, right? I think people, the higher ups at Sony, are mad about this for valid reasons, right? Like, I can't fault them for that. So I think they're going to be, as Brett said, aggressive about securing third-party contracts. If they're not buying studios, they're going to be making sure that studios do not make themselves exclusive to Microsoft, right? Because I think the onus is now on Sony to make sure that studios do not leave their ecosystem.
Yeah, which trust me, I know I'm the one that is the one who said it first. I don't want it to happen. That sucks, and it's really
this
annoying.
Is the anti-consumer part of this.
So
I think this is going to have repercussions that reach far beyond just Microsoft.
Yeah,
the PlayStation landscape is going to change a lot too. I wouldn't be surprised if Sony makes a play for Square Enix. I don't know if financially that is a thing that they could achieve reasonably. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a play to start making more exclusive properties from Square Enix, or at least exclusive to like Nintendo Switch and PS4 or PS5, right? Not going for Microsoft consoles. So I think the response we're going to see is Sony's probably going to acquire studios, right? They always acquire the smaller studios. I think they're going to make a play for someone big. And I think really what's left is EA and Square Enix. Capcom, Konami is dead in the water, I think, at this point.
Cares
you could buy
Konami
Konami for $5 in a back alley street in like Detroit or something.
You know what? I would be happy if Sony did buy Konami, because I think then we might get a game from them.
They would do something.
Even if it's not done by Konami at all, they would at least have the
IPs, right? I want the licenses to be in the hands of someone else.
You know, anyone else, anyone that doesn't squander a 35th anniversary with NFTs.
And hey, because they have such a good relationship with Kojima,
Yeah, I think that
bring him back
could be a really solid play. 'Cause Metal Gear Solid something coming out that is exclusive to Sony, even if Kojima is not helming the project, I think that is a big ask, especially if it's a remake of something.
That's eyes on you.
Speaking of Kojima, that would be a pretty good play. If they're looking into acquisitions, Kojima Productions, I mean, that would be a pretty decent acquisition right there. They already have a really good relationship, clearly.
I do wonder if Kojima would be receptive to that, because I think Kojima is very into the idea of owning his own studio, right?
Oh, well, there is that too.
And also into the idea of like as many people as possible playing like the things that his company puts out. Like that's part of his like motto, pretty much, as a guy who makes things. But also from Sony's point of view, I think it would be a good thing to go after, at least.
Well, it would also give, because I have to imagine it's a new studio. Like, I can't even imagine how expensive Death Stranding must have been, right? Like, he makes very expensive gambles in that they're both very expensive and not super accessible either. So
they usually sell well, but like
they do.
If at one point they don't,
Death Stranding is not a very accessible game to a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So imagine him being able to make whatever weird crap that he wanted, while also having that like safety net of Sony money.
And I do wonder if it would be a safety net or not, because I think what Kojima knows at this point is that money from a higher studio has conditions, right?
Has strings.
Yeah. And I think he learned that lesson from Konami very well, of if he really wants to make the projects he wants to make, he needs to find his own funding and have ownership over them, right?
Yep.
You can't take the half measure of having this other studio.
That being said, I think we can all agree, even if, he did answer to Sony, they would probably treat the whole situation better than Konami did.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree on that.
Well, Konami just gave up, right? They just threw in the towel.
Is
They did
giving
all
up
the
too
wrong
nice of a
things.
word? I feel like giving up is too nice of a word to describe what happened to them, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what the response to this is. I think this is where things could really go negative in the future, is there being a really, really negative reaction from Sony that is just not good for the games industry. And I feel like that is something that might happen. It's just something happening where Sony is like purchases a bunch of studios that are going to end up being PlayStation exclusive forever. Right.
It's so interesting to see how back and forth like Microsoft and Sony are, right? Like 360 PS3 era, like I think most people can agree that Microsoft kind of came out on top with that one, even right from the get-go. Like their console was cheaper and it had stronger like third-party support. I remember the whole fiasco with like Skyrim, like the PS3 version of Skyrim and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
then
360
PS4 and
had a lot
Xbox
of
One.
JRPGs too. The 360 was really popular with Japanese developers.
Yeah, and then PS4, Xbox One completely swapped. Like PS4 was like looking good right out of the gate, and the Xbox One just absolutely just ate the dirt in comparison. And now, again, it's like starting to swap, I think, again, because Sony's
on the software end
relationship
specifically.
Yeah, because I think Sony's relationship with third party has been kind of strained the last couple of years, just because they are just so unwilling to play nice in so many different areas. Like I remember, like how
The crossplay
like,
arguments that
that's what I was gonna say. Their
constantly
crossplay, like their strictness with crossplay was ridiculous.
Yeah, I remember the articles that came out of them wanting developers to pay for crossplay, and I'm like, this is so actually insane.
You what, mate? You what, mate?
I feel like that really is showing the problems that it caused now, because I think now they're going to have that strained relationship with some developers that are really going to play into this. But I think we might have on our hands another full-blown, essentially console war in the next few years. Maybe not on the consumer side, but on the developer side, I feel like Sony and Microsoft are going to be at each other's throats, at least software-wise, for the next few years.
Which is a great lead into the next episode.
Well, next episode will probably be either a Game of the Year discussion or going over the Fantasy Games League that we did. Going through that.
We can probably go over the Fantasy Games League in like 10 minutes.
Well, we also got to pick the next year. We got to start the whole next year thing. So that and its consequences. It's got to be. We said that there are consequences.
Definitely take more seriously.
I think also if we can recenter, because I'm just remembering this now, and again I'm forgetting exactly. I've been trying to find it. I can't find it. I'm forgetting exactly where I heard this from. I'm pretty sure it's legit. Is that Microsoft has, and I think we might have talked about this, but I could be wrong. Microsoft has stopped producing Xbox Ones, and Sony has gone back to producing even more PS4s instead of pumping PS5 production, because PS5s cost $1,000 to get for a normal person.
There were two more rumors about this. I believe the call that Sony had ramped up PS4 production was false, from what I was reading about. That they just haven't changed it. So in comparison to Xbox, it looks weird. Xbox One stopped production last year. They have been out of production for around a year now.
Which is weird.
I will say with the way that Microsoft has set themselves up with their ecosystem, they are getting a lot less like screwed by their manufacturing shortages, which is part of why their ecosystem is so powerful. It's like, okay, if our Xbox One side isn't working as well, we still have all of PC to sell our games. We still have Game Pass. I mean, people can play our games on their phones now using streaming. So
and also like you have those very well known and very often applicable jokes of like, oh, the PS5 haha doesn't have any games. And it's like the things that are exclusive to the PS5, there's like a handful of them that are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play it. Sure, I'm gonna play a PS5 to play this, but it's like if you don't like those like 5 things, I'm just gonna
If
get
you
it
don't
either.
really like JRPGs,
It's if you really don't like JRPGs or action RPGs or RPGs at all, then you have no reason to fork over the insane
Yeah.
scalper inflated price to get a
there's
PS5 where it's
no
like
shooters at all. They're racing games. We're getting Gran Turismo eventually.
eventually someday, yeah.
As much as I've praised Ratchet and Clank and Returnal, I don't think they're worth it enough to get a PS5 for yet.
I do think Spider-Man is. I'll put Spider-Man on that
Spider-Man,
list.
God of War Ragnarok.
But again, all of these
those
are
aren't out yet.
third-person action games, right?
And
Like,
those also aren't
Yeah.
out yet. I'm talking about what's out right now.
well, I mean, what's out right
Like, they
now
have
is
a-
Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales are worth it, right? I think if you are at all interested in those,
but
are
you
paying for
can,
the
but
console.
can,
You
I
can
mean,
play it on
you get-
PS4.
Yeah.
you know, and it's like, even then, it's like at that point, you're basically just buying a whole PS5 just to play an upgraded version of those games that you can already get.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think my final guess on what Sony's going to do is make some kind of play for Square Enix, either exclusivity. I don't think they're going to actually purchase Square Enix. I don't think that's feasible for
I'd
them
cry.
to do.
I'd cry.
But I see them making a play for at least Final Fantasy being an exclusive going forward for a few
I would
years.
sob.
It would be very sad, but I think that is something that might be on the cards.
Because that just basically essentially means that any titles that come out from this point on, I would not be able to play because I don't have a
Oh.
PS5 and I don't have enough money to fucking get one.
I feel like there might be. I think they might keep PC as a platform for them because I don't think, especially for a third-party studio, they would be petty enough to be like, you cannot release these games on PC because Square Enix already does a good enough job of that being a problem anyway, right?
Yeah, you have a point.
I don't think they're going to put extra
they already
marks
don't
on that
care.
contract.
Don't give them any ideas because
All right. With that, we're officially on shoutouts. It's the end of the show.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, time flew by. This is a longer episode too.
These past few episodes have been going by really fast.
Oh yeah, well we got interesting things to talk about. There's so many things could happen off of the back of this. It's very interesting to think about. All right, who's ready with a shout out?
I have one.
Go for it, Brad.
So we talked a little bit about how Battlefield 2042 is like depression inducing.
Yeah.
It's like probably doctors recommend not to play it. It's that bad.
9 out of 10.
However, me being, of course, with my PhD player hater degree, being a doctor, I can full confidence recommend to you BattleBit Remastered on Steam.
BattleBit Remastered.
This is a game that you look at it and you go, Brett, there's something wrong with you because it looks like Roblox.
No, I say that for a lot of other reasons, Brett.
Well, this game plays satisfying, and currently doing it in weekly or like sub-weekly play tests for free, and you could just get into it. You just click the button on Steam and you just get into it immediately. The next one that I believe is February 20th, I think. And when the game comes out, it'll be only $15, and it's just better Battlefield than the
Actual Battlefield.
newest Battlefield that you can constantly play. The gun being able to actually command your squad and stuff, 8-player squads, server like numbers that are absolutely crazy, like 124 versus 124, and it isn't terrible. Like that's insane. The maps are like actually, they feel designed for large player counts, and you put all that together with a VoIP, which is the greatest thing, because you can run into a building full of teammates and it starts collapsing because everything's destructible again, and everybody starts screaming because it's
Remember when Battlefield did that?
it's yeah. But because everyone's you can obviously choose to toggle it off. I think it's only default on when you're dead, so you could like vocally call for a med But you have text to or press to talk. So when something starts happening, you could just start screaming like a madman, and it is absolutely hilarious.
Okay.
This sounds fantastic. Is this going to be our next play session?
I hope
It's
so.
a while
It's
off,
really
though.
fun.
It is a while off, so
Yep.
keep it
I
in the
would
back
highly
burner.
recommend. Yeah, join the Discord, support them on Patreon because they do have a Patreon. BattleBit Remastered, very good.
I'm going to piggyback off of you, Brett, because we're on the Battlefield mood. Gotta recommend. Well, the mood for a Battlefield game that isn't Battlefield because Battlefield sucks,
that's fair.
right?
Yes.
I've already recommended Angels Fall First. I also got to throw a recommendation out to Ravensfield on Steam, which is akin to BattleBit, a low poly Battlefield style game. Ravensfield specifically is designed mostly for single player. It is very akin to the classic Battlefront, like Galactic Conquest style of things, where you have like you set up your mission and then you go in with your set of troops that you have, your instant action, and you get this big battlefield. You have different loadouts. It's got Steam Workshop support, so all sorts of different weapons and vehicles are there. Super fun.
It looks like a prototype that I would make using Pro
It
Builder
does,
and Unity.
but the handling of weapons and everything in the game is really good, and it has like tactical mode that's like an Arma styled mini mode you can choose where you start with like a SWAT loadout and limited ammunition with your squad of 4 that you can command and like go take out a base from the distance. Oh, it's very good. And yeah, Angels Fall First is also phenomenal Battlefront styled game that is actually incredibly good. The online's pretty much dead until it probably actually releases at some point, but single player in it is also very fun. So heavily recommended.
So I did have a shout out, and then I forgot it, and then I remembered it, and then I forgot it, and then I remembered it, and then I forgot it again while you two were talking. So shout out to my brain for not being able to remember anything for longer.
Write or type it down, Wyatt.
Because oh my god, I kept wanting to, and then when I went to go grab like a piece of paper to type it down or something, I forgot.
Oh.
So shout out to my stupid brain. To my stupid monkey brain.
He's got a bit of the goldfish head, ladies and gentlemen.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a bad case.
What do you got for us, Alex?
Oh my god, I almost forgot.
After all that.
It's contagious. Oh god, what was it? Oh yeah. Shout out to my favorite mathematical concept, the dragon spiral. It looks cool.
Extrapolate
I love
on what that is.
the dragon spiral is an interesting sort of fractal like thing where so you start with an L or a right angle, and I'm gonna be really bad at explaining this, so bear with me. You start with an L with a right angle, and essentially you just, for every edge that there is, you just make another right angle, but you alternate in and out, or as I call them, beeps and boops.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start with a 2, and then you beep boop beep boop. And it's called the dragon spiral because it looks like a cool sort of like dragon in an S shaped pose. The more and more generations you go through, I'll send you guys a picture after this because it's going to be a lot easier to explain that. It looks cool, and I like doodling them to calm down.
Wonderful.
From things if I get too tilted at a video game.
Very peaceful.
Destiny 2 PvP.
All right. So now that we've learned what Alex's calm down routine from Battlefield 2042 is, it's time to officially end the episode. As always, Tuesday mornings at 7 a.m. Eastern Time on the podcast platform of your choice, YouTube and Twitch. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye. I just love the muffled scream.
I also remembered originally what my shout out was going to be.
What?
It was... oh, crap.